How's it going, everybody? I am Preston Johnson. Welcome to Last Word Cheetah, brought to you by Bets TV.
As a general philosophy.
That's exactly right. You're a fish.
Qwan, by the way, my producer, Qwan Young, doing a good job. He'll be taking the calls. How you doing today, bud?
Hey, man, how are you?
We appreciate you guys tuning in. Welcome to the show, Bets TV, bringing you Last Word Cheetah. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Last Word Cheetah, brought to you by Bets TV. I am Preston Johnson, hosting the show. In studio today, Drew Dinsick, at Will Capper on Twitter. Most people watching the show are probably familiar with him. His work on NBC Sports, the Deep Dive Pod with Andy. Welcome to the studio, sir. How you doing? How was your weekend?
My weekend was incredible. We are 1 week closer to the NFL season kicking off. There'll be real deal football this weekend with college, so I couldn't be happier. Love this time of year.
I do as well. Qwan, by the way, I got to give him some love. Give your little twinkle wave that you do every day. He's producing from over on this side. And I also, before we move on, by the way, welcome to those tuning in from the Game Plus Network. We appreciate it. We're going to get to our calls like we normally do. 661-515-BETS is the number. We take your calls. We talk through the bets that you guys want to talk through. We track it throughout the month. We give away cash at the end of the month to the people that have the best ROIs. Today, we got Drew in studio. It's only NFL, so you guys have to pick NFL preseason. I'm sure we'll have some callers that missed that. NFL preseason, week 3. We have a game tonight as well if you want to just fire on Saints-Jags. Saints laying, I believe, is at 4, and a total of 40. Maybe some 39.5 still around there, so we can dig into that some. But Qwan, going back to him, he said Friday that he's a karaoke master, Frank Sinatra. Rumor is there was some sort of video sourcing the internet and the Twitter feed Friday evening. Can you play this for everybody? Drew and I will give you a 1 through 10 rating, and we'll see if you. What do you think? Over under 8.5 out of 10.
I say it was a solid performance. I'll give it.
All right, go ahead and roll it.
Yeah! But I know I'm gonna change that too. When I'm back on top in June. I said that's like you guys join that slide, and that's funny as it may seem. Oh, it's so funny though. Some people get their kicks stomping on a tree, but I don't let it get me down.
Okay, a couple of things. One, this threw me for a loop on Friday. I just did not anticipate. I mean, Qwan, like you gave some love to a random like pop punk song once that we had in an intro.
Yeah.
But I still didn't take you as like the Frank Sinatra guy, let alone singing in tune. Then you were getting the crowd into it.
Oh, yeah.
I think 9 out of 10 because you were holding it. Was it a White Claw? I don't even drink, but I think some people would probably hit on that.
Listen, man, I'm a natural born entertainer. 6th grade. I'm going to tell you this. This is the last, it's probably not the last, but this is the story. 6th grade.
Okay.
There was a $75 prize for a talent show. I went out and I got myself a black suit and some black shades, and I performed Men in Black. I beat out
like the Will Smith song.
Men in Black
yeah,
song.
Okay.
I had 2 background dancers. We did a little dance routine. I beat out Make 'Em Say which was pretty, that was the song at the time, and my school was pretty aggressive.
This is in Detroit.
Yeah,
right?
Pontiac. Okay. It was right up their alley. So I beat out Make 'Em Say and there was a pretty good dance by some two women, Janet Jackson, I Get So Lonely. So young 6th grade Qwan was an entertainer, and it's kind of evolved a little.
It's too bad that you played football for a while. Otherwise, who knows where your path would have led you. Look, how much money can I pay you to do Men in Black in studio at some point this week? There has to be a number.
You know what? If we get the callers, if we can get a couple callers to say, yeah, I'll do something.
All right, well, that's easy. Everyone that calls in, say yes. Qwan has to perform Men in Black.
It has to be unanimous. Even if they don't want to do it, they have to say Qwan, yes.
You know that's not fair. Tone's going to call in and say, no way in hell do I want to see Qwan performing Men in Black.
That's who I'm hoping for.
All right, we'll see. By the way, you can open up the lines. It's 661-515-BETS. We're going to take calls until the midpoint of the show. Then Drew and I are going to break down the NFL. We have some macro kind of topics to just break down from a betting perspective entering the season. And then we're going to go into the NFC West, which I brought you in for that because I was like, oh, it's the local team, like LA Rams, even though we're kind of in Orange County. Here's my issue or problem with the Rams in general being in LA. So I know you didn't grow up here early on. I did, but my years when I started following football in the NFL, both the Rams and Raiders had already left. So I didn't have any team to root for. Then I moved away for school, and I was in Vegas for a while. They get the teams back, but I feel like a bandwagon, like fake fan if I try to say I'm a Rams fan. So it is a somewhat local team, but I can't really get behind the Rams. I will say, though, my dad, Steve Young, BYU, 49ers fan. That's what I grew up kind of watching the Niners and rooting for them. So I think I know you're a little pro Niners as well this season. I'm hoping that's the case because that's kind of where my quiet ties lie.
I have a couple of pretty strong opinions about the NFC West that I've kept under my hat. You don't want to give away all your good stuff super early in the information cycle because it gets stale. People kind of know what your opinion are, and they're like, I already know what he thinks about everything. But I've kept a couple of NFC West ones under my hat for late in the
strategically placed. No, this is great. I didn't even know that. I know you said, NFC West will be good. He can do any conference, any division, really. But, yeah, this will be perfect. Qwan, do we have someone on the line? Okay. We'll take calls for a couple of minutes. We'll hit our first break. We'll take some calls after that, and then Drew and I will go from there talking NFL. But go ahead, patch them through. Welcome to Last Word Cheetah. Who are we talking with?
Hey, Preston, it's Patrick.
Hey, what's up? I got you. Go ahead.
You got me?
Yeah, you're good.
Hey, I want to give a major shout-out to Drew, as I have been a very long-time listener to the Deep Dive pod, and I'd wager that no one clutters up those chats on the live streams more than I do.
Oh, this is the Patrick.
All right, you know who he is.
Of course.
Right.
What is happening?
Yeah,
very
right.
cool. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah,
What's going on, man? Hey, it's good to see you live with Cheetah.
Yeah, no, it's great to talk to you, and I appreciate all the content that you contribute on the live streams. You have consistently come through with useful nuggets, so keep up.
Well, I was going to say then, I'll interject Patrick because he's had some really good preseason stuff, especially that first week. I think he called in, he did 4 games. They all moved like at least 2 points his direction. He went 3-1. I know the Vikings and then that parlay that you threw in last week, Patrick, wasn't as nice, but, and I know there's a bunch of lines that have started moving already today. You got to go preseason for today's pick. You are in second, by the way, Qwan. If you have the leaderboard, throw it up there. He updated it. Tom's in first because he just never missed it. And I don't know, he hit 5 parlays in like 7 days. But Patrick, you are in second, even though you're trailing by like 7 units. So Qwan will get the update there. You can see it. But go ahead and tell us what you like for preseason. And do you want to go into tonight's game?
You know what? I don't have a real strong opinion on tonight's game, but I'm going to go with the over, which, I mean, it's a high total for a preseason game. But I know Urban Meyer, he wasn't real pleased with the Jags offense and their tempo last game. I know Trevor Lawrence is going to play more. And with the Saints, they're going to have both their quarterbacks playing, which means they'll probably play behind the number 1 offensive line. So, I mean, maybe that point total is warranted. So I'm going to take a shot on the over. I'm not going to parlay with anything today. I'm just going straight with the over.
Okay. Here's the question. You got 3 options here on my screen. You can go over 39 minus 118, over 39.5 minus 110. Do you have a preference? I'm not sure the 39 in a preseason is worth the 8 cents. That's my perspective.
I don't know if there's key totals in the preseason. I don't know, especially
39 seems like it wouldn't be it if there even was. Yeah. So, all right, we'll go 39.5 at the minus 110.
Yeah.
As a long-time listener of the Deep Dive, Patrick, you know, if and when you can sell
the points,
you sell.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That's how you do it. And one more shout out to Drew, too. He really patted my bankroll a few months ago with that Medina Spirit. I tailed on that, and that was huge.
Yeah, never bet against Bob Baffert. He only has 1 horse.
What was the payout on that?
So he was 12-1.
I got it at 16-1.
If you were betting some fixed odds, you could have gotten some 16-1. I think
bookmaker early, 16-1.
Okay. Right on, man. We appreciate the call.
All right, see you guys.
We got to hit our break.
Yep.
We'll talk to you tomorrow, Patrick. Thanks for calling in. 661-515-BETS is the phone line. We'll take the rest of the calls on the other side. We got about a 2-minute break. Stay tuned, and then more NFL with Drew. All right, welcome back to the show. This is Last Word Cheetah, brought to you by Bets TV, here in studio with Drew Dinsick. We're going to talk a bunch of NFL soon. We do need to take your calls for the next 15 minutes or so. But first, Carlos, I'm going to make you hold because Qwan asked me right before the show started. He said, how was your weekend? He remembered it was my son's birthday on Friday. Then it was actually my dad's birthday yesterday. But funny story, he was like, oh, I'll go if there's a bouncy house, etc. Like, he was just joking around. Qwan didn't show up. But I forget about this. I didn't even mention it on Friday. So he's my youngest of two. And he was pretty early. And it's actually the same day my wife and I are married. It's our anniversary. But we never celebrate our anniversary anymore on the day because it's our kid's birthday. So I didn't even remember it on Friday. We're doing the show. I was like, oh, yeah, it's his birthday, and like spaced about the anniversary. But he heard me calling, and I set up an anniversary, like a dinner tomorrow. So now this comes to Drew, who I know you like good food occasionally here in town. I've asked you for some recommendations that have paid off. I went to Bourbon Steak at the Waldorf Astoria in Dana Point. Ooh. It's pretty new, I think, at this location, but Jeff Ma took me there. Shout out to Jeff. Really? He wouldn't let me pay. He never does. So if he's listening, thanks again. But it was really, really good. I'd actually hadn't been. So we're going back Tuesday. I'll take my wife over there.
Dude, brilliant. One of the things you can't even overcome, how beautiful the view is from that Waldorf
from the
Astoria.
Deck, yeah.
Same with the Ritz-Carlton in Laguna. You can have the best food in the world, but when you amplify it with the experience and the views, it's just it's tough to beat. So that's a fantastic spot. Good work.
Perfect. Thank you. So I should pass the test on Tuesday. Luckily, I didn't actually forget, and I gave her a gift on Friday night after my son opened presents. So we're good. We're in the clear. Carlos, thanks for coming through. Thanks for holding. Welcome to the show. How was your weekend, man?
It was great, man. I went to my first MLS game with my son. We both bet the over 2.5 and won. It's hey.
Hold on a second. Hold on. You said we both bet the over.
I had questions too.
We both bet the over. He's 16, you said. So you're letting him fire on over 2.5 as a 16-year-old.
Absolutely. Listen, the children are our future. You know what I'm saying? It's worth betting. This is what I'm telling you.
Fair enough. I respect it. I'm glad you at least won, especially going over. You know the rule whenever I'm attending a game. It's just absolute Undercity. All right.
Yeah.
What do you like tonight? Are you going to bet Jacksonville, New Orleans, or are you going to go future weekend for NFL preseason?
I'm going to Drew. Shout out to Drew. I'm a big fan. I listen to you all, NFL, you and Andy. Good content, great stuff.
Beautiful.
I'm doing a parlay because I guess I'm in third now because Patrick's in second. I don't know where I'm at, but I'm going to take Colorado, Chicago Cubs under.
You can't do baseball today. That's the rule. I'm throwing you a curveball now.
Oh.
I announced it at the beginning, but Drew's in studio. We have to go NFL. That's the rule. You got to go preseason, either tonight's game or for the week 3 that goes, runs through the weekend.
Doesn't sound like he
did.
Give me Jacksonville then.
You want to go Jacksonville?
Give me Jacksonville. Money line.
Money line. Ooh, okay. Let me give you a plus 179. I can give you. You want us to go money line? You agree with Patrick? Urban Meyer was upset about the pace. He's going to go quicker, up tempo. Maybe Trevor Lawrence gets a little extra PT, or are you just taking a wild shot?
Both. How about that?
Fair enough. We'll lock you in for plus.
Hey, every preseason game is a coin flip. So if you're going to get plus 179 on a coin flip, you're doing good.
Do you know off the top of your head? I know you're not exactly saying it's a coin flip, but is it relatively close?
This game? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, I just mean in general. Like historically, regardless of money line price, is it like pretty close to 50-50?
I think with preseason, you can bear that out just on the basis most lines are right around -1.5.
True, most of them are going to just.
You have favorites flipping all the time. There's really not a lot of differentiation between these two teams, between teams as they come into the preseason. And my gut would say if you're considering laying the points and it's any more than a field goal in the preseason, you better have a damn good reason.
That's what happened with Kansas City last week in the first half. Everyone was banging it up to like -4 first half, and the full game was only 3. It worked out that time, but generally I agree with you. Hey, Carlos, we appreciate the call, man. You enjoy your weekend. He probably already hung up. My bad, Qwan. Go ahead and patch through the next caller. What's up? How are we doing?
Yo.
You're on, Tom. Go ahead, man. How you doing?
All right, buddy. How are you?
We are good. This is the guy, by the way. I'm not sure if you. He's in first. He can't lose. He sounds just like Pikachu with the southern accent. Okay. And Qwan, to this day, still thinks it actually is Pikachu.
I've talked to Pikachu quite a few times, so I think I can probably pick this out if it's
okay.
If it is or isn't him, we'll see.
Then let's give Tom the stage. Let us know what you like in NFL preseason.
Well, that's where you done throw the loop at me. See, now I done studied baseball all day long, and you come with the loop.
You're in first. I have to do something. You don't lose.
All right. Well, what do you see in the total for tonight's game?
I can give you 39.5 or 40. The 39. The over has just moved. 39.
Let's go over the 39.5.
Okay, I can give you minus 115 on a 39.5. Or if you want 40, minus 110. That's probably actually worthwhile doing the minus 115.
Yep, let's do that.
All right. We'll lock you in. And then tomorrow, don't worry, you can tell me the 3-teamer on the diamond that's going to win. And we'll lock you in for that.
The Yankees will smoke Braves tonight.
Ooh, a little bonus then for people listening. Smoke the Braves. Do you want to go run line on the Yankees? Let everyone know?
No, yeah.
Okay, there you go. Tom doubling up. We're not going to count that one. We're only going NFL for today for the leaderboard, but everyone follow along. Yankees run line. We appreciate it, Tom.
Yeah, the Braves got to grab hold of a decent team tonight. They ain't got them wiffle ball bats tonight.
Selling high on the Braves is common right now because they just last 9 games they went up against who? The Orioles, the
it was
Nationals. They're finally playing a real team. I think they are.
Yeah, plus they got home and all of them got to see the old ladies last night and this morning.
That's a sneaky angle.
Well,
they'll be a little weak in the knees come game time.
Hey, thanks, Tom. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, brother. Have a good one. All right, Drew. Later. Peace.
There's that angle in the NBA, the road trip of 5+ games. You always fade the home team, especially in the first half. It's even more profitable. I mean, that's been good for like 7 straight years now. And I think there was 1 year it broke even, and then the other 6 years blindly just been like 57%. So
let's not get off topic here.
That's what I'm getting at. Is they get home.
Good angle.
They see the ladies.
No, you know what I'm here for. Drew, was that Pikachu?
No, it was not.
I don't like that angle.
I can tell you Pikachu has he's pretending to do a southern accent because he's been around it a while and he's trying to disguise his voice for whatever reason. That guy was born and raised in like the foothills of the Appalachians. That guy was.
Well, that's what was interesting. We'll call him Juan Martinez. We'll take the call in just a minute.
Sure.
He messages me.
Yeah.
He says, he's like, that was 100% Pikachu. He's like, no one could have that thick of a drawl without trying to do it. And sure enough, it is a guy named Tom. He's really nice. I've DM'd him before. It's not Pikachu. So
is he from North Carolina, Tennessee, or Virginia?
It might have been Tennessee.
Okay. Yeah. That would have been my first guess. Like Knoxville or like right up against the Blue Ridge. Yeah.
I know he's a Vols fan, so that makes sense.
Okay. No, Tom.
Oh, the real Tom. Well, that's where he's at now, but he's from Tennessee, if I recall, because he's a Vols fan. Yep. Now he's giving
volunteer. Yeah, that was a volunteer Navy accent if I've ever heard it.
He nailed it, actually. Yeah, Drew was on top of it. All right, go ahead and patch through the next call. Welcome to Last Word, Cheetah. How are you doing today?
Hey, Cheetah, it's Ty.
What's up, man? How's your weekend?
Not bad. I was at a bachelor party in the Poconos.
That's not bad. Could definitely have been worse. By the way, did your fade?
A lot of degenerate gambling going on.
Give us a story. You have something you can share?
Well, from the gambling side of things, I would say I know you have Drew sitting right next to you. I don't have FanDuel or DK here in Connecticut, so when I was in Pennsylvania, there was a lot of tennis wagering based on Drew's recommendations. So that was that weekend kind of paid for itself thanks to Drew.
Boom. Well done.
Very cool.
Nothing but love for Drew today. I love it.
Good, man. Yeah.
You got to go preseason, by the way, Ty, for today's pick. We'll lock you in on. Do you want to go to tonight's game or do you want to look ahead?
Mm-hmm. No, I'm going to go Jags first half money line tonight.
Okay, why first half? Just capitalizing on Lawrence and trying to run their official offense for a half?
Yeah, just trying to be different from what maybe some other people might call in and take, and yeah, I like that angle more than the full game.
Okay, Circa's actually dealing at plus 200.
Whoa.
Quite a bit higher than some of the others. So I will lock you in for
I
that.
Yeah, can I, without going into detail, Drew, can you give me a U.S. Open future on the men's or women's side you like?
On the men's side, you'd field over Djokovic is going to be the winner. That's going to be the right way to attack it. People so locked in right now that he's going to win the calendar slam, and realistically, he struggles in the heat. His form at the Olympics was pretty clearly well below his peak, which we saw at the French Open Wimbledon combo. He's probably going to go off in the -120, -125 range before the tournament starts to win it all. And I think field against him is a fair play. Covers a lot of possible options. Zverev looks extremely dialed in right now. Medvedev would have been my pick about 2 weeks ago before we saw Zverev really find this new gear. His serve and his timing is absolutely ridiculous. I did not expect to see that coming from him, and when he's been struggling with the double faulting issues now for the last about year. So Medvedev still in my gut wins it, but Zverev is a very live dog.
Beautiful.
Appreciate
Ty,
it,
if you're still on the line, you can go ahead and hang up. I love that he said, do you have a U.S. Open future for us? You don't need to give any analysis, just something we can leave with. And then Drew takes it for a good 90 seconds. I don't do tennis. I think you probably know that. But what's the Djokovic price just relative to like the field? Like what's his?
He's gonna go off -120, -125 to win the title
him versus the field essentially.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, you'll get a plus money on the field over him, I think.
That's interesting. Qwan, fire away. He's not paying attention. We got to get you betting tennis. I like it. The angle, it makes a ton of sense. It's just a general, like, public reaction.
Yeah, that discovery. And this is the toughest slam for Djokovic. Were it not for Nadal being in his way at the French Open, that he would have more French Open titles. He's obviously by far the best in the field at both Australian Open and Wimbledon. But the U.S. Open, because of the conditions, it's like a slow hard court, and in general, they play the final in the heat on Sunday, and after a 2-week run where he's kind of gets everybody's best shot, you make him play in the middle of the day in the heat at Flushing Meadows. It's just a miserable spot for him. He's lost some very, very high profile finals, notably Stan Wawrinka beat him. It really that was one of the better finals that I remember in U.S. Open history. Stan Wawrinka got him. Nadal's gotten him before. He's had a tough time sealing the deal in the finals at the U.S. Open. So this is a rough spot for him.
Nice. There it is. Plus money on the field versus Djokovic, U.S. Open. Qwan, do we have someone on the line? No? We're good. All right. We're going to talk 2 minutes on NFL. We got to hit a break, and then we'll just continue from there. If someone wants to try to call in the last 2 minutes, we're not going to take calls after this break. So call in NFL preseason. But to start things off, and this may end up leading in after the break, so don't worry about trying to fit it in. But one thing I want to just kind of hit on is macro stuff going into the season. And the main thing being home field advantage, because we saw it dropping off prior to the weird COVID season anyway, where there weren't any fans. And then it was like road team advantage for some reason for the last 2 years, if you look back at all of it. So personally, I think we're going to probably see some sort of regression back to 2018-ish home field. That's my opinion. I think it was overall a small sample. But what are your thoughts on that? How are you approaching it just going right into week one?
Yeah, you got it exactly. I think realistically we've seen home field advantage in the NFL diminish over the last few years, and the reasons last year were obvious. I mean, no fans in the stands, on top of the fact that you just had better communication because it was a more quiet environment, and really road teams scored at a clip that was pretty astronomical. Think about in the NFL what contributes to home field advantage. Obviously, the travel and rest aspects, the way that the game is refereed matters for sure, and the NFL has really done a very, very concerted effort to try to neutralize reffing for home and away teams. There was kind of an old school generation of refs that came through and retired in the 2015, 16, 17
Ooh, that's interesting.
time frame, and the new guys that came in are wildly neutral. They don't get swayed by the sound, the crowd noise and influencing pass interference, holding things like that. And yeah, for sure, last year, specifically to start the season, they de-emphasized offensive holding in a way that you saw scores pop in the first 4 weeks of the season. You just had totals that were this isn't an NFL game anymore. This is college football kind of scoring. And they walked that back to a degree. I've seen holding called more aggressively this preseason, which makes me think that you're probably going to see it, called that way as we get into the regular season. And so my gut is that the crowd noise and in general, the way that the game is refereed, you're going to see, this under trend that we've seen through the preseason carry through into the regular season more so than you're going to see home teams all of a sudden with a 3-point-ish advantage again.
So let's hit on that right after we take our break. We have to take 2 minutes. So Qwan, you can go ahead and hit it. If you have a call, I'm sorry. We'll withdraw the rest of the way talking NFL. We'll dive into it on the other side. This is Last Word Cheetah. Drew digging the little ska vibes. Outro. I liked it.
Oh, very Southern California.
That's right. We got to keep it real. So welcome back to the show. This is Last Word Cheetah. We have Drew for the next 28 minutes straight. We're going to talk NFL. We were just talking a little bit about home field advantage, the prospects of it entering this season, comparing to how it's really played out the last few years. You also mentioned that the preseason unders you think maybe aren't entirely noise. We might see that bleed into the beginning of the regular season. You also had one more point you wanted to make about home field. So go ahead and take it from there. You can hit on those two.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, this so common. People like, how much is home field advantage worth? Is it 2 points, 3 points? That's not even really the right way to look at it, right? Like, it's entirely how much win probability added do you want to give to the home team? And then what does that translate to in terms of point spread?
So for people that are a little, if they're newer, if we're talking like around the key number of 3, home field isn't going to go from 2.5 to 5 or something like that, right? Maybe it goes to 3, right? It's a half point around there max.
Yeah.
But if it's like a 12.5 to a 13, something on average, it's going to be worth more than that. So to kind of give some context, but he's exactly right. It's more win probability and what point spread equates to which win probability.
Yeah. If you're going to give a team 8% added win probability, that might take them half a point from 2.5 to 3. Yep. Whereas it might also take them 3 points or 2.5 points from say 4 to 6.5 or something like that. that. So
Bingo.
Key numbers matter enormously in this conversation, and so don't lose sight of that. I always do my adjustment in win probability before translating into it.
No, that's a good note for people that are listening, trying to do their own work.
Yeah, and you also are correct. In the last 2 years, it's been more road field advantage than there has been home field advantage, which is tough to really wrap your head around. And I will be fascinated to see, specifically early in the season, if there is some regression. I would guess that there will be, just because there's some interesting travel challenges for some teams early in the season. So I think you may see road teams underperform earlier on. And if the market overreacts and is like, oh no, we're going back to the same sort of adjustments we used to make, you may be able to catch some value on some road teams once we get to the middle towards the end of the season. In general, also, I think that home field really starts to wash out as you get in later into the season, where other factors matter more. Overall health of the team, key matchup issues, how good was your game plan? How good was your week of practice?
Sure.
Stuff like that is going to start mattering more as you get later into the season. And that's going to, dilute home field advantage also.
So 2 more quick things before we hit on the actual NFC West. Have you made any adjustments that you're doing now preseason because there's a 17th game? The answer may just be no. But we've talked a little bit with some people. We've had them come in or call in. They're like, oh, well, maybe if the Chiefs are sitting there up top, maybe they rest Mahomes 2 games at the end of the year. I don't think they would do that, because then they wouldn't play for like a month. But that type of stuff is interesting. But is there anything, because of that 17th game, that's changed how you've molded your approach?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely impacts the overall landscape, the macro specifically, because your NFC teams have 1 less home game than your AFC teams, and so in general, I think the overwhelming narrative of this entire offseason, and really the last 2 off seasons, is the AFC is continuing to kind of consolidate power. Like, all of your good young quarterbacks, all of your good head coaches, like, they're all concentrated in the AFC now. And in the NFC, you really only have a couple of teams that can distinguish themselves. And so that really has created a landscape where if you're going to see a surprise, it's probably going to be in the NFC. I mean, I don't think you can really, convince me, at least. You're going to have a tough time twisting my arm that there's some unknown powerhouse that's going to emerge in the AFC this season. I just don't buy it. We know who's going to be there at the end of the year. But the NFC, I could entirely see somebody can sneak up, win, 10, 11 games this year and be sort of in the driver's seat for a 2 seed, 3 seed, or, a really good wild card team potentially. And at that point, that's where your awards are going to come from, because people aren't going to expect it. You know what I mean? Sure. Like your coach of the years, your superlatives are going to kind of come from that group of NFC teams that are surprisingly in the mix.
So you're right. Like in the AFC, you'd have to just leapfrog so many quality teams. It seems unlikely. This is a good segue, though, to the NFC West, because I think, going to your point, after the Bucs in the NFC, and I have struggles giving a weird Aaron Rodgers Green Bay situation, plus they've just benefited from a pretty nice schedule the last 2 years anyway. I have trouble really putting them like as a top tier NFC team along with the Bucs personally. The next tier of like teams, there's just this NFC West is so stacked. Imagine being the Cardinals and being as high as plus 650 to win the division and the worst team in the division, which is just kind of wild. A lot of hype for the Rams, obviously. And then we know Seattle and San Francisco can be good. I think that maybe, does it count as a surprise team if they come out of this division, or is this just too clumped in that second tier that you would have to look, again, staying macro for a second, below this tier to someone else like, say, like the Falcons or someone like in that mid-range season win total?
Sure, yeah, no, specifically when I was shopping Coach of the Year odds, that's what I'm thinking about. And you can make a case for the Panthers, you can make a case for the Falcons. Both those teams in the NFC South have easier schedules than the NFC West teams will have, just because they don't have to play, they don't have quite as many, just brutal games against each other. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the NFC West is there, that end. Over the years, the NFC West has already been a big brother, little brother, rock, paper, scissors on a lot of those teams anyway. Like, Kyle Shanahan and the Niners consistently have the answer for the Rams. And similarly, the Rams are going to probably get 2 easy wins against the Cardinals. That's just the way that goes. And so, those aspects, I think, also make it tougher for an NFC West team to really emerge. But if there's going to be a number 2 behind the Bucs in the NFC overall, the likelihood that it comes out of the NFC West, I think, is very high. In general, if you made me kind of write it down, I would just say Bucs, your number 1 seed in the NFC, and I don't think it's especially close. NFC West winner probably gets to 2 seed. And then I agree with you that even having Aaron Rodgers back and even having him perform at exactly the level he played at last year still gets that team only really into sort of number 3 seed contention for me. And that's because for 2 years in a row now, that front office has actively made the roster worse. Like their decisions in the draft and what they've done with free agency have actively made the team worse. And, their schedule is harder, just like you said.
Do you side kind of where Rodgers is coming from with this whole thing?
Of course. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah, no, he has no leverage. You know, the NFL players in general, they don't have NBA player leverage at all. Right. They can't do anything. But he can absolutely make it known that he is displeased with the direction of the organization. And that's what he did this whole offseason, just to make them squirm. And, you know, I don't hold it against him. I don't think that this was like a, you know, some weird, he was acting out, you know, kind of deal. Yeah. Like, yeah, no, he's, you know, if we can pick up this stuff and we're just, you know, layman betting at sitting at home watching it on TV, and he is into, you know, he's at practice. He knows, you know, the development of these players, and he knows, you know, that they have a vision for the future of the franchise that doesn't include him because they went and traded up in draft capital to get Jordan Love. I mean, he has every right to, you know, express his displeasure, and you know, I understand it.
Part of it makes his performance last year even more impressive, the way he just took it upon himself. You know, you always say, like, you're growing up, or if you have kids, you want to let your play talk, right? You don't want to just like talk smack itself. He spoke, right? He let his play talk, and he earned it, but the schedule gets a lot tougher. So that opens up the stage for you then to tackle this NFC West. Rams and Niners, and Qwan, you can hit that graphic one more time for people that are viewing. They're plus 190 each to win the division. I believe that he pulled BetMGM lines. You can get as high as plus 200 on both of them. That's basically the best price that exists. Which team would you have bet? I know some of the totals are more like juiced under on 10.5, or they're juiced over on 10s. So it's more like an Asian 10.25. But if you had to choose between the two, and I kind of already had a head start on this, I mentioned your bullish 49ers. Break us down, Niners or Rams, whichever you want to go first.
Right this moment, to those folks listening and watching at home, and even in the room producing who may be Rams fans, I think they're the most overrated team in the NFL.
Wow.
I think the market is the farthest off on the Rams to the high side of any team that's out there. And I would point specifically to what they lost on defense. And really, like, looking at their first team defense right now, you have Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, and 9 guys. And the rest,
whoever fills in.
Yeah, the rest of those guys are going to need to perform at above replacement level to be close to as good a defense as they had last year.
And by the way, Brandon Staley's not there.
And honestly, like, have you seen in a past life, Raheem Morris was asked to take over a defense that had glaring holes, and he was asked to coach up replacement level players to perform at an adequate level, and he failed to do it. And that happened over multiple years in Atlanta. So it's like, I feel like I've seen this before. I feel like I kind of know how this goes.
Yeah.
And Aaron Donald, is he singularly the best defensive player in the NFL? Yes. Is he going to be able to beat triple teams constantly because there's really no one else on that defensive line that I think can create pressure consistently? I don't know. And that's where, you know, I think there are for sure opportunities for smart teams, smart coaches to coach away from Donald on the offensive line and to coach away from Ramsey in coverage and really pick apart some of the holes on this roster defensively. And so, you know, are the Bears going to do it week 1? No. But are there other teams that are on this roster that are well coached? You look at week 2. Week 2, one of my favorite angles is setting up to back the Colts in that spot. Market obviously very cool on the Colts. Colts coming into the season take on the Seahawks. Market's already flipped on them. Seahawks are a small favorite. And if the Colts lose that game, which I think is reasonable, you're probably going to get Rams, who are coming off of a primetime win against a poor Bears team, going on the road, you know, playing in an early Sunday game in Indianapolis, and you're going to get a real cheap price on Indianapolis, who has, you know, a coach that can, I think, take advantage of these issues. So just in general, I'm betting against Rams in the NFC West, and that opens up the door for, if not them, who?
So we move to the Niners after 2 questions. First, sure. I know you're a big proponent of betting alt season win totals, sure, just because of the distributions of results when it comes to season win totals, and you can actually give me the verified number, but it's something like 7.5-ish teams per season land within a game or two of their season win total. It's usually by more. And so you have opportunities like, say, I'm not sure if you've bet these yet, Rams under 7.5 at 3-1 or better, something like that. If you're that bearish on them and you think that they're the most overrated team from a market perspective.
You don't have to go to 7.5. You can find 9.5s out there.
Sure.
They're
plus 125,
right.
130.
Or you can find some very favorable numbers to get on the alt under for the Rams. And I think that's a fair way to put it. And, I guess last kind of thought on the Rams. Is Mcveigh a verified, bona fide coach in the NFL? Absolutely. He's going to have that job for as long as he wants it, and he deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
He also does make some decisions in game that I have huge questions about. I don't think his in-game management is up to snuff with some of the best in the NFL at this point. Was it an upgrade to go from Goff to Stafford? Absolutely it was. The problem is they had to give up more assets to make that happen. Right now they've had multiple. It's well documented how many years in a row they have not had a first round pick, no draft picks. Right, at some point that catches up to you. At some point, the idea that you gave Goff all that money, that you gave Gurley all that money, and that you now have to eat it, that catches up to you. And it's caught up to this team in terms of the depth that they have across the roster. And you really, it's stars and scrubs anyway. In a best case scenario, everybody stays healthy. It's still a stars and scrubs team. 1 or 2 injuries on the offensive line, you have a problem. And honestly, Matthew Stafford, even though he's a clear upgrade over Goff, he's a guy that has had trouble staying on the field. And people look at it as he's a warrior because he plays through it. But he manages to get himself hurt a lot. Yeah. So I have huge questions about whether this team lives up to expectations this season. And realistically, the general attrition. Guys they lost, the Hills and the Johnsons on the defensive side of the ball, Staley as the coordinator as well. I think this defense is going to come down to earth the fastest, and there'll be a lot of opportunities to bet against them early in the season.
So last thing on LA, if we're right about the defense as a whole, and I still think Mcveigh will be like, wow, he has this toy Stafford who can actually throw the ball accurately down the field, which he hasn't really had before, and Cam Akers, their run game might not be as effective. They might be trailing in more games than the market is anticipating. 14-1 for Stafford to have most passing yards. Intriguing at all. Again, the health thing, I guess, comes into play then there, where you might just not want to bother. But Qwan is a Detroit Lions fan, so he's pro Stafford. He thinks he's going to do well. Anyways, I just wanted to throw it out there, 14-1. If you're right about the defense and that they're going to be behind in more games than the market thinks, it's the 7th favorite.
Sure.
Which seems a little low to me when I looked as far as the other quarterbacks ahead of them.
No, it's a great point, and the fact that you lose Cam Akers is a good point as well. There's less likelihood that you're going to be able to lean on your running game late in games, so you do what the Chiefs do and you just pass.
Bunch of screen passes.
Yeah, and that's that could absolutely put him in the conversation. I don't doubt that for a second. I really though there's a lot of people that have made some. The Rams are in the same conversation as the Bucks. Obviously their market power rating is, that next tier with the Packers and the Niners in the NFC. I hope that on Sunday Night Football Week 1 they just obliterate the Bears. The Bears are a freaking mess right now.
Yeah.
Hot mess. I just hope they obliterate the Bears and it sort of crystallizes everyone's priors that the Rams are.
Oh, yeah, Rams are going to
Oh, wow, yeah. Oh, see what they did? They beat the Bears 42-0. Like something like that crystallizes people's priors on the Rams, I think will give us a nice 4 or 5 week betting against them window.
So 49ers. I know we did a bunch of Rams. That's for the locals that are listening. Well done. Let's not focus on if it's Garoppolo or Trey Lance, although I know you've taken a shot at 8-1 on Lance to win Offensive Rookie of the Year because he may end up starting early on, whatever it may be. Why do you like the Niners regardless of who the quarterback is? Because I think that's more important. If you're I like him because Trey Lance might start, that doesn't really make sense to gamble on now when you don't really know who's starting for sure. So why do you like the Niners no matter who's under center?
It's Kyle Shanahan mostly, and in general, the fact that this team now has a set of weapons around him that complements the scheme perfectly. And so quarterback irrespective, this is an offense that is going to be able to go and get you 30 points on any given game. And yes, people have kind of lost track of the fact that they were, a score away from winning the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. And then, come out last year and have one of the most horrific injury-riddled campaigns that we have on paper ever.
Yeah, at least on the defensive side.
Yes, at least on the defensive side. And I am a little gun shy to just kind of put my stake in that team and say, this Niners team is absolutely a contender in the NFC, and people are sleeping on them. And I say that because I have some questions about their secondary. I have some questions about their ability to, stay healthy. Particularly their offensive line is a little bit thin, and so there are some red flags to really get super, super bullish on this team. But at the end of the day, they have the best coach in the NFC West, in my opinion, in Shanahan. At least what he brings to the table in terms of scheme and tactical advantage on a week in, week out basis. And they may feel the loss of LaFleur. They may feel the loss of Saleh. That's a non-zero chance that they actually take a little bit of time to kind of get as good as I think they can be this year. But you have a lot of returning guys from injuries that are going to make a immediate impact for this team. And they, in my opinion at least, have a decent head-to-head advantage against both the Seahawks and the Rams, and those are your two chief competitors for this title. So I think you have to tip your hat to them as being the favorites in the NFC West. I bet into it at plus 215 before, right when they made the trade for the third overall pick.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know for sure it was going to be Lance. In fact, I thought it might be Fields, but I was pretty convinced it was going to be someone who had a chance to take this team to higher ceiling. Mm. And so I fired then, and it's at plus 190 now. Hasn't moved as much as I would have hoped, but ultimately I think it's still somewhat value. Ironically, looking at the prices now, if you made me just make one play, I'm probably taking the Seahawks at plus 275.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, plus 275 is not a very respectful price for who is clearly at this moment at least, the most the most accomplished of these quarterbacks. I'm not a Pete Carroll. I am not a Pete Carroll guy.
Yeah.
Not a Pete Carroll guy in any way, shape, or form. I feel like he actively makes this team worse than they could be. But that said, they have a new voice in the room who is in charge of the offense. I wanted to have some hot takes this offseason, and I was listening to people kick around the trade Russell Wilson thing, and in the back of my head, I'm like, man, Seattle maybe they should have sold high. Maybe we saw peak Russ Wilson last year through the first 8 weeks of the season. And then the more I marinated on that, I was like, you know what? That's stupid. Russell Wilson is
a top five quarterback.
He's a top five quarterback. Yeah. There's not, this year, next year, he's still, at the peak of his powers. He's going to be a factor. And the Seahawks have, a little bit easier schedule sequencing than the likes of some of the other guys. So it's going to be the most fascinating division to watch from just from a competitive balance standpoint across the balance of the season. And I think you're going to want to scoop best price available on a couple of these teams.
For sure. So staying on Seattle for a second, plus 280 is as high as I see, at least in the U.S. books. For the Seahawks to win the division, it's about a 26% break even. Do you know off the top of your head, do you have numbers you've run and simmed the division?
Yeah.
Niners versus Seattle. Is it above 26%?
It is, yeah. But almost all of that is just because I'm not close to market on Rams.
Right?
Okay. So I have
you're just that bearish.
I look at this division as a 2-team race. Seahawks and Niners. And I want best possible entry price on both teams. I got Niners early because I looked at their schedule. They start out with 2 games where they're favored by a touchdown. By the way, both on the East Coast, they go to the Greenbrier in West Virginia and do a concentrated week of prep.
Oh yeah, no, that's nice.
That's like that extended. They extend their preseason, and if you have a young guy like Lance that you're trying to get reps to, that's helpful in the long run as well. And so there's a lot of positives to take away from the way the Niners start their schedule. I can see. They have a clear matchup advantage against the Green Bay Packers. I don't know how many times we need to see that game to know that they're going to be able to run it down their throats. And so I like the idea of Niners are out there at 3-0. They just beat the Packers in primetime on Sunday Night Football Week 3. That price is going to start to move pretty quickly, and at that point, I'll probably jump in and grab some Seahawks because ultimately this is a 2-team race.
If you're right about the Rams and they're 1-1 or even 0-2 to start, then the Niners price, if they're 2-0, absolutely crushes. All right. Anything on the Cardinals outside of, I can't believe they're the 4th best team in this division and their win totals, basically 500. Are they a 500 team, better or worse?
I mean, I have no action whatsoever on the Cardinals one way or the other. I like some of the things they did in free agency in terms of bolstering the defense. Moving on from Patrick Peterson was, I think, pretty prescient, and ultimately you have some secondary pieces that are fun and interesting. Although the rumblings of guys like Chandler Jones wanting to get out of town, and now, oh, by the way, he may have a fit with the Jets just because they lose Carl Lawson. Like, there may be some more moving parts on this defense that ultimately take them a step backwards. And Kyler Murray, I am a little cooler on him than the market in general. I don't necessarily see him as a clear and obvious top 10 guy in the NFL. And in particular, his third down struggles, which have carried through to the preseason, have been a little sketchy. I think ultimately the idea that you have struggles on third down and you have DeAndre Hopkins on the field for every snap is mind-blowing to me, because the catch radius is so ridiculous. You basically just need to get him past him past the sticks and throw it near him. Like, he's going to get it. And yet you have a cheat code to get you third down conversions, and they still can't do it, is a huge concern. And ultimately, this campaign does not work out for the Cardinals. Keim gets fired, Kingsbury gets fired, and they start from scratch with a new regime. And so I think if I'm looking at any way to attack the Cardinals, I'm probably trying to find a first coach fired on Kingsbury.
Ooh, I like that. I'm not sure of those prices off the top of my head, but I wouldn't think he's like one of the favorites right now anyway.
He's in the mix, but mostly just because he's like in the top 10 of odds-wise, but mostly because there's just a lot of guys that are safe this year. I think if you polled most people, they would probably
half
say,
the leagues just
right. If you poll most people, I think you say a lot of people would be like, oh, no one will get fired. Like somebody will get fired in week 17 if they want to get like a jump start on like their next hiring process. But the market leaders are your Zach Taylors and your maybe your Joe Judges.
So here's a question now. Staying with the NFC West, but now on a grander NFC level for the conference. I thought it was interesting because, let's see, your bullish Niners in Seattle in the realm of the Rams are just overrated. Let's even keep the AFC out of it, because most likely they'd probably be a dog to one of those teams in the Super Bowl anyway. The difference and discrepancy in NFC prices, the Seattle, you can get a 12-1 right now to win the NFC. The Niners, the best price is only plus 650, which seems like this should be a little more sandwich. So maybe if you're going to attack Seattle at all, and maybe you're right, you wait a couple weeks and you get a better number even potentially at that point. But it feels like I'd take a shot on the NFC. You know what you're getting with Russell Wilson and all that side.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. The problem with everyone in the NFC is that you're in the same conference as the Bucs. And the Bucs are so complete and so strong at every level, on top of the fact, and they have depth. They have, a preternatural nature of staying healthy and getting guys back from injury in a way that maybe other teams don't have quite that advantage. So I'm not as worried about them having a bunch of cluster injuries that impact their performance. But ultimately, the Bucs, I think, are the only NFC side that I bet pre-flop here. And
like at 3-1?
At like 3-1. I think that number.
Wow,
I think that number, you have a good laugh about midseason when the Bucs are the last undefeated team. They've beaten the likes of the Rams week 3.
And it's like plus 125.
Yeah. You're gonna everybody's again kind of thinking about how the market is going to react to early season games and who has favorable spots and whatnot. The Bucs have a ton of them. Obviously, getting the opening night banner game on Thursday and then getting 10 days to prep for week 2, and then you have Rams early in a spot where the Rams are coming back from traveling to the East. There's a lot of nice things about the Bucs schedule overall that I think you're probably talking about 10-0, 11-0 type of start. And at that point, how the market reacts. Like, oh, they got the 1 seed in lockdown.
Yeah.
Like, people will now, that number is going to move pretty aggressively, I would guess. And I do think by midseason, you're probably talking about a pick 'em there. And,
essentially, now's the best time to buy. You're always trying to buy low, sell high.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, like, Jimmy G or Trey Lance is not going into Tampa and winning an NFC title game. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are not going into Tampa and winning an NFC championship game. Russell Wilson maybe could go into Tampa and win, but I don't believe in Pete Carroll not screwing it up along the way, where they have some winnable game in the playoffs that they find their way out of, right? And so if you say that I'm Bucs or nothing in the NFC for the balance of the 2021 campaign, that's probably where I'll land.
Okay. Nice work, man. Just rattled it all off. Nothing in front of them. Real quick, you got about 30 to 45 seconds. tell people where they can find you, watch you, everything you're doing right now before the season.
Oh, of course. We do daily podcast, daily video on YouTube for NBC Edge right now, Bet the Edge podcast. And then Andy and I are doing 2 deep dive previews a week, covering each NFL team in great detail.
Yes,
that's been a ton.
They're
of
like
fun.
over an hour, and they do 2 teams.
Yeah, we're stretching our legs there, kind of going over the entirety of what possibly could impact their season. So yeah, and of course, find me on Twitter at @whale_cap, where all my content goes out there as well.
Excellent. Hey, I appreciate you coming in, man. Good to see you again. Thank you for the callers that did ring in earlier. All NFL today. Good luck on the NFL preseason games. We got Jaguars, Saints. Do you have a pick real quick before we hit the break? If you had to.
I like the Jags in the over.
Take the money line. Go with the over. Urban, Trevor. We'll watch it tonight. We'll catch you guys back tomorrow, 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific. This is Last Word Cheetah, brought to you by Bets TV.